Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
All right, everyone, welcome to this week's show. Thank you for joining us today. Today we have an amazing guest on, and I want to send a special thank you to our mutual friend, the guest and mine, Gina Van Timmeren, introduced Kim and myself a couple of weeks ago. And despite Kim's busy schedule, she said, yeah, I'd love to come on your show. So, folks, today we have Kim Sorelle on. And Kim is the director of a humanitarian organization. She's a popular speaker. She's the host of a network TV show, a podcast host, and the author of 2 books. Now, we're going to include the links to all of her accomplishments on the bottom of today's show notes. So I'm going to advise everyone, please click on those links, explore Kim. Her first book, Cry Until You Laugh, is about her breast cancer experience as well as her husband's battle with pancreatic cancer. And folks, they were both diagnosed 4 months apart. Her second book, Love Is, which actually has a 4.9 star rating on Amazon, so check it out. That chronicles her year-long quest to figure out the true meaning of love. A sometimes funny, sometimes scary, and always enlightening journey that led to life-changing discoveries found mainly on the streets of Haiti. Kim Sorelle, my friend, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Brian, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. I'm so happy that Gina and I connected the two of us. And as I said before we started today, Kim, is I haven't had a chance to really get to know you, so I'm going to get to know you along with all the Bamboo Pack audience. So let's just start off. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your family, what inspired you growing up, whatever you want to share?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I grew up in a suburb of Grand Rapids, Michigan called Comstock Park, and I loved it. I grew up in a neighborhood that had a lot of kids my age. We had to be home when the street lights were on, but we were outside all the time. And I just had a great time. And I had a great high school experience. I have 2 older brothers. And when I was in high school, I knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I had it laid out before me. I was going to be the first woman president. And so I knew where I was going to go to school and what I needed to do. And then May of my senior year in high school, this tall, dark, handsome man walked into the room, and I was immediately smitten. And 2 weeks later, I asked him to marry me, and he said yes. And we got married a little less than a year after that.
What? Wait, so go back to that. In high school, you fell in love and you knew right away.
I did. Yeah. I dated a lot in high school. And there was just a total different feeling with this man. And he was a few years older. He was 4 years older. And there was just a connection. I mean, I think some people have that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you have that? Have you ever had that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? The difference, Kim, yours survived.
You know, that's so true. And it's kind of like against all odds, right? To get married at 18 years old. I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure, or a lot of people would think that. But I feel like we kind of grew up together. He was 22, and I was 18. We had our first baby when I was 20. And so I was a young mom and a young grandma. And so I was young when they all flew the coop, which that's not so bad either.
Okay, so tell me, grandkids. You've got grandkids?
I do.
How many?
I've got 11.
What?
Yes. Yeah. Everyone is a joy. Every single one. They're amazing.
Okay, then I have to ask you this question, Kim. This is a selfish question. So I have one grandchild. His name is Jack, and he's 2 years old. And this little guy has my entire heart in his hands, 100%. And I laugh about this, but there's some truth to this. How do I love my next grandchild as much as I love him? I don't know that I can love any more than this.
Well, you know, as a mom, I don't know if it's different for a dad, and a grandpa versus grandma. But before I had my first baby, when I was expecting her, people would say, oh, just wait. You won't believe how it feels. And I thought, I already love the baby. What are you talking about? And then when my daughter was born and I held her in my arms, I looked at her and I thought, did my mom love me like this? Mm-hmm. Like the feeling was just so overwhelming. And then when I was going to be a grandma for the first time, people would say, oh, just wait. And I'm a mom. I know how to love babies. I'm excited. Yeah, I think I already know. Well, when that baby was born, it was like having a baby times 10. The feeling, I don't know why, but it was even greater than giving birth. It was so amazing. But it's been like that with every single birth of every single grandchild. So you will love that baby.
I thank you for saying that. And that's what people have told me. And I remember when obviously I have two children. So I was a 19-year-old father. I was young as well. And then my second child was born when I was 36. So, or 35. They're 16 years apart. And when I was thinking about, a lot of my friends said, you're going to be an amazing grandpa. You can't, my friends who were already grandparents, I'm like, yeah, cool. I'm looking forward to it, but there's no way I can love my children or my grandchildren as much as I love my children. I can't experience or fathom a new level of love. And when he was born, it was like instantly. The day he was born, my grandson, he grabbed my finger in NICU and he held on to it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I love this little guy like I've never experienced. It's so different. And it's great. I can't imagine 11 grandchildren. That's so awesome.
It is. I love it.
And I have a bonus grandchild, a little bonus granddaughter too. Yeah. And one of my stepsons, my oldest, I call them my bonus sons. He and his wife just had a baby. 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago. And I still haven't even had a chance to meet her. So I'm hoping to meet her in the next few days here for the first time. And, I see pictures of her and I instantly already feel when I pray at night, I pray for both of them. I said, I'm going to be BG, bonus grandpa.
I love that. I am that to Gina's little girl, Ripper.
Really?
Yeah. I don't see her nearly as much as I should because Gina is so darn busy. But yes, I'm River's Uma. My grandkids call me Uma, like Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with German Oma. It is Uma. So Uma. Anyway, so I'm her Uma.
Oh, that's so cute. I have not met her, but I've seen pictures on Facebook. She is the cutest little girl.
She is not just cute. She's smart. She's funny. She's nice. She's kind. I mean, she is everything. She's such a great little girl.
Well, I think Gina and her husband are great people. So I have not had a chance to meet him, but I think the world of Gina. So I know she's done well with her husband and her daughter. So that's good stuff.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know if you know this, but I just moved away from Grand Rapids 2 years ago. I lived in East Grand Rapids for 20 years, I think. And when my son graduated high school, I moved to the UP. So I know Comstock Park. I lived in Grand Rapids, the area, for 22 years. And maybe it was only 18 in East Grand Rapids, something like that. But so I just moved out of the Grand Rapids area, June of 2021. Moved to the UP, but now I spend about half my time in Lansing area. That's where I am today, actually.
Well, so today you have on your Lansing accent rather than your UP accent.
Well, the thing is, I do find myself when I come back down state, people do say, "Hey, you have more of an accent than you did when you left 2 years ago." Because I'm not really up there. When I'm up there, quite frankly, I'm with my kids because my daughter and her husband, who are the father or the parents of my little grandson, they moved from Traverse City to to Marquette 4 years ago. Or 4 or 5 years ago. And then my son, who I had when I was 35, he decided to go from East Grand Rapids to Northern Michigan University in Marquette. So I just kind of followed them up there.
Oh, nice.
So when I'm up there, I'm really either by myself or I'm with them. So I don't really get a chance to pick up on much of get my UP accent back, even though I'm from the Upper Peninsula, but I moved away when I was 18. So.
Yeah. Well, it'll come back. It'll come back for you.
I was thinking though, Kim, you talked about have I ever felt that instant love and that kind of thing. I think that if I had read the book Love Is when I was younger, maybe I'd still be married.
It's certainly possible.
There's a possibility there. All right. So when you were growing up and you wanted to be the first woman president of the United States, what inspired you now? Like, what inspired you as a child? You have this personality. You've done these amazing things. You were doing these amazing things. What inspired you to become the person you are?
Oh my gosh, so much, right? I mean, I'm 62 years old, and so every day leads to today. So there's been so many things that have inspired along the way. I always think, there's books out there, Brian, for having a baby, and raising an infant and a toddler and whatever, a middle school age child and a high school kid. There's books while you're growing up, while your kids are growing up. There's books that you can go to for reference. And I always think there should be a book for your 20s. And there should be one for your 30s and your 40s and your 50s, because you just evolve. Like the way I was in my 20s, I kind of think of that as like, I don't know, 15, 16 Kims ago. Like it was wild. It was back there. And I remember it well. And it was a great time. I was busy with all those babies, but it was way different than my 30s, way different than my 40s. And so there were so many inspirations. My dad, my mom, my dad was an entrepreneur. And so I started my first business with my mom and dad and two brothers when I was 18 years old, and always was in business. I just sold my last couple of businesses. I broke off from the family. We just kind of all separated, went our ways, not out of anything bad, just, whatever, just the way businesses worked out. And so I just sold them not quite 2 years ago. So I'm living this whole different life now than I was then. So there's been a lots of inspirations.
Oh, wow. That's great. It's so amazing where so many people I speak with came from parents who are entrepreneurs. Oh my goodness. Sorry. My coffee went down the wrong pipe. Oh, I needed coffee this afternoon. I had a phone call, Kim, at 3:13 in the morning. As a parent and as a grandparent, you don't like calls at 3:13 in the morning.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I jumped up and I couldn't see my phone. So I grabbed my glasses and I put them on. I was in a panic, and it was like a number I didn't recognize. It was out of Toledo, Ohio. I'm like, what? So I didn't answer it. I checked on the phone. My kids were home. I can check and, see where my kids are. They're both home. I'm like, oh, it wasn't them. No idea who it was. They didn't leave a message. I don't know if it was a telemarketer calling at the wrong time, but you know how that happens and you can't go back to sleep?
Yes.
It's exactly what it was.
That's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Especially like that, because your adrenaline's running through your body, right? It's just racing. Yes.
100%.
Very hard to fall back to sleep.
And I laid there waiting for a voicemail thinking maybe it's some friend of mine, but I'm not going to answer. I didn't want to answer, but maybe it was a friend. Nothing happened. By then, I was so adrenaline. I laid there and I didn't even think my alarm goes up at 5:30 in the morning. And I must have just fallen asleep. It felt like I just fell asleep and my alarm went off. So, and I have a fundraising event to go to tonight at Spartan Stadium. So I got to caffeine up a little bit.
You do. So enjoy that coffee.
Yeah,
hopefully
I am.
From now on, it'll go down the right pipe.
Yeah. I won't drink it so fast. I was trying to listen to you as I was drinking. So over the last couple of years, our world has gone through a lot of changes in the last couple of years. Over that 1, 2, 3 year time frame, whatever you want to choose, what would you say, Kim, has been a great learning for you that you can share with us? Great learning? Yeah.
Well, my business has made it through COVID, and I was in the food industry, and I had event facilities. And so I had to tell weddings that they couldn't do their wedding. And I had to constantly be changing. Our governor was kind of constantly changing the rules on us. And we could have 12 people, we could have 8 people, then we could have 50, but then they had to be outside, or we could do 100 outside, and then we could do 100 inside. And things just kept changing all the time. And we had to change with it. And I think one thing is that people are better than you think they are. Like, it is no fun. If you're a bride and you've been planning your wedding for a year or more, and then all of a sudden here comes COVID, And instead of your big wedding, you're going to have 8 people, outside. Like, what a difference, not what you're expecting. But we were able to do things where people could watch the wedding. We had cameras and we had the equipment. We just adapted every way that we could. We bought tents. We did everything we could to adapt. And I think that was the biggest learning, is that you can either adapt and run with it, or you can stay inside and keep a mask on. I mean, you have choices. You can choose. And it was a lot of work. It was not easy. It was a lot of painful days, but there's such a satisfaction in knowing that we made it. And we helped other businesses along the way too. Like we were able to help a lot of other people. And I just think people are good people. People are more understanding and kinder, I think, than we sometimes think.
I love that. That's a really good, that might be a really good title for today. People are better than we think they are. And we are much more adaptable. We think the COVID, the quarantining, all that really made people, it pushed all of us out of our comfort zones. And we had to think completely differently about how we run our business, how we run our families, how we run our personal or social lives. And it really, what I saw, Kim, is, and I talked to my son the day when we were living in East Grand Rapids, and we got the notice that schools were closed, gyms were closed, restaurants were closed. And I remember putting and my audience has heard me say this so many times, I put a whiteboard at the bottom of our stairs, and I called them down, and big standing whiteboard, and I put a C, an I, and an A on it. And I said, okay, we're going to go through some things. Here's the deal. Gyms are closed. And I said, so we're going to write down all the things we have to accept, which is the bottom. The A stands for accept. We had to accept no school, no gym. He couldn't go to the boxing gym. He couldn't go, with his friends. We couldn't go to our favorite pizza place, blah, blah, blah. And we put, okay, now let's talk about what we can influence. Well, all we can do is influence the outcome of certain events and certain people's behavior. So that's easy. Then I said, now let's talk about what we can control. All the things we can control during this time, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 years, we don't know. We're going to be kind of quarantined. And we could control how much we read, how we worked out at home, the things that, playing games. We could work on all these things we could control that were good for us. And I said, we are not going to discuss the things we have to accept. There's no reason to have a discussion. We have to accept them. They are there. All we're going to focus on are the things we can control. And then I talked it to my clients too. I said, let's work on the control things. And what I found, I told my clients, I told myself, and I told my family, nobody will come out of this the same person. You will either be a weaker or a stronger person, and it's all dependent upon what you do during this time. And I have seen so many people come out of that situation stronger as a human, as a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a business owner, as whatever your role is. But I've also seen some people come out much, much weaker. And it sounds like what you guys did was you kind of focus on what you could control during that time in your business and for your customers and clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a great story. You are a good dad. What a smart thing to do. And it makes me wonder about you and your absolute brilliance, because that I've never heard done. And that was such a cool thing to do with your son. But I think choice is another big thing. Like, there are so many things that we don't have control over, right? Like, you don't control cancer, if you're going to get it or not. You don't control other illnesses. There are things in life that we don't have any control over. We don't control the economy entirely, things like that. But the things that we do have control over, take control. And one of the things that we have control over is joy.
Oh, yeah.
How happy do you want to be? If you get up every morning and you choose joy, instead of looking at the negative side of things, look at the bright side of things and choose your happiness. When we let other people have so much influence on us that they influence our mood or they influence our responses in a negative way, we're giving away our power. We're giving it away. Like, we get to pick. We get to pick how we respond to things. We get to pick the amount of joy we have. We get to pick who we hang with. We get to pick who we want to be with, who makes us better. Who the great people. We get to make so many choices. And I think it's so important, like you said, that you did during COVID. Like, take control of those choices and make good ones.
I love we choose our happiness. You're just giving me titles for the podcast episode. That's all you're doing right now. I loved what you just said so much that I just benchmarked 18 minutes into the podcast so I can actually pull that out later on and play that again and put a little soundbite out there. That was beautiful. And that is really true. And I think if you even break it down to, and I don't ever talk politics on this show, but I won't, but people who complain about our presidencies and things like that, it's like you have influence over that, but it's just one vote. That's all you have. And so many people spend so much time on social media complaining or throwing these diatribes out there. And I used to be one of those people until 8-9 years ago. And I realized, wait a minute, why am I doing this? While I'm doing this, I'm focusing on something that I have to accept, because by now the results of the election are in. I had one vote influence, and that's all I had. I'm not really influencing people by throwing this negative diatribe out there about a certain president or a candidate. And when I started walking away from that and saying, focus on what you can control. And I didn't say it this way, but it is. I was trying to choose happiness over trying to control or influence other people's views on politics. And so many people haven't gotten that. And when I look at those people, Kim, friends of mine or family, they are usually the most unhappy ones that I know, the ones that are least happy in life. And it's just so simple. It's so simple.
Absolutely. I have known so many people who used to watch Fox News or CNN or whatever kind of all day long, who quit it, who just cut it off, and it changed their life. It made them so much happier. We don't have control. Like you said, we don't have control, but putting down people, even our president, even when there's things that you don't agree with, it's not really helping you. When you're attacking somebody else, when you're questioning them, you have no control over anybody, right? Like, you have a baby and you have total control. Mm-hmm. You decide when the baby eats, when the baby sleeps, when the baby takes a nap. And then 6, 7, 8 months later, your pots and pans are all over the kitchen floor. Tupperware is everywhere. You realize you've lost control. And I promise you never get it back again. You only control yourself. We don't control anybody else. We only control ourselves. And so just complaining, blaming and complaining get you absolutely nowhere.
Wow. I think I wrote another 21 minutes into the podcast. You have throwing another great words of wisdom here. I agree with that a lot. My daughter will love to hear that one, because she's at that stage with a 2-year-old, which obviously your children have gone through several times, where the house is always a mess. You're constantly changing diapers and feeding a kid, and you're getting, when he was little, he'd bite every once in a while. It's like, you know what? And I told my daughter, I said, when you have a kid, and now we're talking about raising children, the first day he was born, she started worrying. I said, you'll never stop worrying. I said, really, parenting is all about worrying all the time. I said, when they're 18, 20, 35, 40, it doesn't matter. I'm 56. My mother's 88. My mother still worries about me and the rest of her other 4 children and her grandchildren. It never stops. But I said, but you have to accept that. And you have to just, you have to find the joy in every single moment. The messy house, whatever, messy house, we'll call it, messy bedrooms, books everywhere, toys everywhere. You have to live in that moment. It's a tornado, and you have to ride it through and enjoy the ride.
You really do. One of the things that I learned about love would have been so helpful to me as a young mom, or a mom with young kids. And it was love is patient. I use this 2,000-year-old poem. You hear it a lot of weddings. Love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast, etc. A love chapter. And so first month out of the gate, I worked on one a month. And the first month out of the gate was love is patient. And I thought, shoot, I know what patience is. You know what patience is. You're not honking your horn if you're stuck in traffic. You're not angry because your 2-year-old can't find his shoes, or whatever it happens to be. But love that is patient is entirely different than that. And I just believe you're supposed to love everybody. It's the happiest, best way to live. Just love everybody. Just accept people for who they are and love them. Let people be who they're created to be. and just love them. That's your only job. We're not judge and jury. We're here to love each other. So if you love whoever it is you're with, you recognize that this is the most important moment of your life. What's in the past is in the past. What's in the future is yet to come. This moment right here, right now, is the most important moment of your life. So this is the moment that should get your full, undivided attention, your complete attention to this particular moment. And I'll tell you, Brian, I stunk at this. Like, I would be talking to somebody, thinking about a meeting I had later, who had to get to soccer practice, what I was going to make for dinner that night, whatever it happens to be. And I had to practice and practice and practice, really being present, fully engaged in the moment. But when I got it, it changed my life. It changed my life because I noticed I started doing less talking and a lot more listening. And I was hearing what was really being said, not what I was assuming they were saying based on what I knew about them or some label I put on them, because love doesn't label people. And it changed everything. So as a mom, I look back and one of my sons, Luke, now works for NASA, by the way. So he's come a long way, but he used to poke my arm, mom, 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 mom. If I was on the phone, if I was busy, whatever, and couldn't stop and talk to him. And it was just mom, mom, mom. I think probably still have a hole in my arm. And I now look back and I think, as I'm making dinner at the stove, whatever I was doing, if I would have just stopped for a minute and looked at Luke and gave him my whole self, gave him every bit of attention, he probably would have said, look, it's a red truck, and then run away. And so I wish that I would have loved that way with my kids, where I would have recognized the laundry can wait, the food, whatever, turn off the stove, everything else can wait. As a grandma, I get on the floor and play with kids. You probably do too. Mm-hmm. As a mom, it's hard to find the time to do that because there's the endless pile of laundry. There's the endless cleaning. There's the endless diapers, so endless everything. But take the time. Let the house go. Who cares? Let some things go and spend time with the kids.
Oh, I love that. I know a couple of young parents who are going to really love to hear that. Plus, I think there's such a societal standard that we have to keep up because, you go to someone's home, they have 3 or 4 little children, but their house is immaculate. Well, they probably just cleaned it before you got there. And so young parents kind of live in this, well, I have to raise the kids. I have to work. I have to keep a clean house. I have to make sure everything is perfect all the time. They put so much, and I think every parent's done that. That might be a human nature. I don't think it's just to today's standards, but I think it has happened for millennia where parents are they think everything has to be perfect. Maybe at least for the first child. I don't know. Maybe it continues. But as we judge ourselves based on other criteria, whether we see it now on social media or on television shows or movies or just going over to a friend's house and their house always looks great and always have these perfect meals. I'm like, but you're also a guest there. So things are going to look a little differently when you're a guest in their house, So I remember last year, Kim, on 22, in January or December of 21, I put together 12 things I wanted to change about myself in 22, or 12 wins, I called them. And one of them was to be more present with my son, Dawson, who at the time was a sophomore at Northern Michigan University. And I had shared this with my daughter. So it's his older sister. And, so maybe 3 weeks later, we were all together at her house in Marquette. And Dawson was at the couch talking to me. I was in one of the chairs and he was talking and I'm on my phone. And my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, didn't you tell me that one of the things you wanted to do is be more present and engaged with Dawson? He's talking to you and you're on your phone, man." She called me right out on it. And it was like perfect timing. It was like, yep, you're right. And it's because it became so habitual. Your phone is sitting there. It's kind of calling your attention. You get a text from a client. So you're answering it. And it really hit me home like, yeah, be in this moment right now. Because I love what you said. This moment is the most important moment. So tell me, I want to know a little bit about well, first of all, I'm going to ask you this question because this might lead up to that. Okay. And this is that question that is always maybe sometimes for some the most difficult question to ask. I think you're more of an open book, more transparent than most. So I'm going to ask you, In the course of your life, what is one of the most difficult things you've gone through? And then what did you do to overcome that, to scale that wall that you were facing?
Well, I would say I've been through a few difficult things. Everybody has their bumps. Everybody gets their bruises, right? It always seems like some people skate by, but I don't think it's true. I think everybody goes through stuff. And so I was diagnosed with breast cancer, as you mentioned in my bio. And then 4 months later, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And pancreatic cancer is a horrible diagnosis. And he passed away 6 weeks later. Oh. 6 weeks. And so I was still going through my cancer and dealing with the death of my love. I mean, we were going to be in our 90s, rocking on the front porch, sipping lemonade and looking at each other, or whatever 90-year-old people do on the front porch. And so this was so unexpected. I was 47 and he was 51, and it's way too young. Way too young to go. We had little grandbabies then. Now I've got some graduating from high school. And so it was a tough time. And as a mom, I felt like I needed to be strong for my kids. I didn't really know how to deal with the grief. I kind of, in some ways, put it on the shelf to figure it out later. But the thing that really did it for me in getting out of the depths of grief and getting on top of it, I don't think you ever get over it. Like, people say, why don't you get over it? Well, you don't get over it. I'll always love my husband. He will always be a part of my life. I've got kids with him, for goodness sake. I mean, and I love that man. He was a great guy. We were married for almost 29 years. And so you don't get over it, but what you do is get on top of it, because you can be buried underneath grief. It can bury you. It can keep you down. It can keep you in bed. And the thing is to get on top of the grief. And so the thing that got me on top of the grief was when I was physically able to go back to work. It was the end of the year. My husband died in March, and then the end of that year, 2009, I was able to go back to work. And I wasn't sure if I was going to go back into my businesses, but I had people running them, so I didn't necessarily have to do that. Or my nonprofit, if I was going to go back and run that I stepped down from because of the cancer. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. And I happened to run into the man who was running the nonprofit that my father and I had started 10 years before. And I said, hey, do you need any help with anything? And I said, what about the books? And I was like, oh, yeah, the books. So January 1st, 2010, I started as bookkeeper, part-time bookkeeper, as I'm going to figure out my life, right? Mm-hmm. Well, 12 days later, there was an earthquake in Haiti that killed 200,000 people. So within 2 weeks, I was in Haiti. And then for the next 6 years, I was in Haiti at least part of every month. And I'll tell you, I've never read this in the book. I've never heard anybody talk about this. But service is the greatest healer of grief. When you get outside yourself and you're helping other people, your focus is not on you, but on other people, your grief heals. It's like if you're not picking at a scab all the time, right? If you're not picking at it, it's going to heal. If you pick at it and pick at it and pick at it, dwell on that sore, it's going to stay there and maybe even faster and get worse. Get infected or whatever. But service, when you get outside and you help, and you don't have to go to Haiti to do it. You don't have to go to some developing nation. You don't have to go to somewhere who's just had some natural disaster. There are people in your own backyard. There's things you can volunteer to do in your own backyard. If you see somebody, a pregnant woman, oh my gosh, pregnant women, we need help. When we're pregnant, and we're juggling babies, we need help. Open the door. I mean, that's service. Open the door for somebody. Help somebody out with their groceries. Give somebody a minute of your time. Whatever it is, you can be in service wherever you are, if you have the right mindset and if you want to do it. And it is such a healer.
Wow. That was a really very deep, profound response to that question. Wow. Well, thank you for that. I mean, wow, I don't know. You are a brave son of a gun, and you got a lot, man. You got some serious courage. And what I like about what you just said, Kim, that to me, that probably summed up so many reasons why I'm assuming people around you find you have so much credibility and respect. Because what that showed me is a woman who went through a very, very challenging thing in life and then turned around within a short period and served others who needed it desperately, and then found so much beauty in that and found so much healing in that. So, there's this idea of rational self-interest. Sometimes when we serve others, as long as we do it from our core, from a core being of love and desire to help others, we tend to heal ourselves sometimes, if not most of the time, even more than we heal the other person. And
that's so true. It's like you can't outgive.
Yeah,
you really can't. I've tried to outgive, but I always get more out of doing for others than I'm possibly able to do for them. It does. There's something magical about it, something wonderfully spiritual about it, where when you give, what you receive is just so much more than you can ever give. You just can't outgive.
And I don't know if I've ever asked this question in the podcast, but I think I can throw you on the spot on this one. If you had to sum up a mantra, whatever the word is, how it's pronounced, for life, what would it be? What would you say is the most profound thing a person can do?
Love everybody. love everybody. People will say, well, I love everybody. Well, of course I do. But those darn Democrats or those ridiculous Republicans, right? Well, then you don't love everybody, or I love everybody. But people that aren't my religion, or even are in my religion, but not my same church, they're all going to hell, whatever. Well, then you don't love everybody. And we're commanded to love everybody. We're made to love everybody, and just love everybody. I think, you were talking about your daughter and other people that want the house to be perfect, the perfect meal, the perfect everything. And I think a lot of times it's because we're worried about the judgment that will come our way. We're worried that our friends are going to come over and go, oh my gosh, the house was a mess. Are you kidding me? And then leave and then talk about it and tell other people. We're worried about that judgment. Well, our job is not to judge. It's not our job. If we could be free, if you've got friends that are so good, they can come over when your house is messy because you're not going to be judged, or if you could give yourself the freedom to care less if you're judged, that's on them. That's not on you. Right. If somebody is judging you, it's their issue. It's their problem. You live your life. Don't worry about what other people think. Just love them. And I'll tell you, if you think about the people that you're attracted to, the people that you want to spend time with, the people that you want to be around, they're people that love people. And they're probably also people that aren't so worried about what other people think of them.
Yeah, this may be the most profound episode I've ever shot. And the reason I say that is because I think that everything you are talking about, if this idea of love everybody, no judgment, if that could spread around the world, I really don't think there's any one thing that could solve our world's problems more than that statement. There's really nothing. I mean, that is the heart of everything. One of the things, Kim, not a long time ago, I went through years of dating a lot of women, and not that kind of, going around, sleeping with women, but I've dated very, very amazing women. Many of them still really close friends of mine. But I realized where I messed up. And I realized this maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I looked at love as something that I could, as a noun. It was a thing. It was something to receive or feel, more feel than anything. And then something clicked. I probably heard this somewhere, but I don't remember the source. But I remember one day I wrote it down in my journal as I was journaling, and I still write this a lot, that love is an action before it becomes a noun. And what I started doing then was showing love. practicing random acts of kindness. I would literally track, well, I don't now, but I did for quite a while, that I wanted to show a stranger 7 times a week random acts of kindness. Whether it's buying the groceries for the person behind me at a gas station, whether it's opening a door for somebody, or just calling the clerk at Walmart by their name and asking them how their day's going, and things, just making conversation till it become habitual. And also with anyone I've dated is bringing a cup of coffee when they're in the shower in the morning, so they come out of the shower and it's sitting there. Even buying flowers or things like that, just writing a little note around the house, showing those little acts of kindness and those making love an action, something I do, something I give. What I found out was that I didn't really care if I received it back as much, because the act of giving it was really more beneficial than the act of receiving it. Sounds cliche and it sounds corny. And also when I did those things, I found myself receiving more love, more actions of love from from family, from friends, from strangers even. And I just love that statement that love is an action before it becomes a noun. And it's a verb before it comes. Sorry, love is a verb before it comes a noun. And I just think there's a lot of power to that. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. Love everybody. Show no judge. Don't judge.
Yeah. I love that statement too. One thing that I found out about love is there's some myths around love. There's some things that we believe about love, like you did. You believed love different than you know it now. And there are some things that we're just misguided when it comes to love. And that's one of them, is that we think of love as an emotion even. You think of it as an emotion. Well, if you watch a scary movie, that night you go to bed and you hear every creak and every little noise, right? You hear when the furnace goes on, you hear the refrigerator running, you're scared because you just watched a scary movie. Well, that goes away. You don't live in fear. You don't live in that, but you live in love. Love is who you are. Love isn't something that you are ever without. Love isn't something you hang up in the closet when you get home from work or when you get to work. Love is who you are. How you decide to live it and express it is up to you. But love is all encompassing. It is you. Love is who you are.
Now, let me ask you a question. In your book, Love Is, which I have not had a chance to read it, do you have a lot of these types of learnings and lessons and words of wisdom in there?
I do. I do. I mean, that's where I learned it, was living this year I dedicated to figuring out the true meaning of love. I also have some crazy stories in there from things that happened to me in Haiti. Like, I was chased by a motorcycle gang. I slept outside with tarantulas and snakes. And so I tell the stories of what led me to learn what is love that is kind, what is love that doesn't easily anger, what do those things mean? And so those are in there too. So there's some funny stuff and hopefully some profound stuff.
And I have your book now on Audible, but I think I want to order the actual hard copy of it or the paperback copy, one of the two, because the only thing is, you have the most amazing voice. Why didn't you narrate your own book?
Oh my gosh, I wanted to. I asked. My book is traditionally published, and so it's up to the publisher, all that stuff. And I asked and asked and asked, and I just got turned down. I just wasn't able to do it.
Your next book, if you do another book, it's got to be narrated by you.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in the contract. Before.
So folks out there, please click on the link below. Love Is, a year-long experiment in loving out of 1 Corinthians 13 love. You gotta check this out. 94% of the readers ranked it a 5-star book. I've never seen a 4.9 star rating on Amazon. I check every guest. I check every book I buy on Amazon, which everybody knows I order a lot of books on Amazon. I have not seen a 4.9 star rating in my life. So I'm going to get both copies Audible in. In fact, I'll do this like I did for the last guest. The first 5 people who send a heart letter to me, I will get you a free copy from me for Love Is. So first 5 people who send an email, text, whatever I get first, snail mail, card in the mail, whatever. If you reach out and say, this is what this episode did to me, and share with what you got out of this episode, you're going to get a free copy of Love Is from the Bamboo Lab podcast. So that was so much right there in that short 8-9 minutes of conversation. But I'm going to move on to the next question because I'm really curious now. Oh, by the way, I'm going to ask you a question, Kim. Have you read the book or have seen the YouTube video, The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch?
Oh my gosh, I was reading that book when my husband was diagnosed
You
with
were?
pancreatic cancer.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. That's not a coincidence.
No, it's not a coincidence. And right. Yeah. Great book. Amazing book.
Fantastic book. I was just talking to a client actually this morning, and I recommend that book, or at least go to the YouTube channel and listen to or watch the video on YouTube, because I think it's like 50 minutes long or something. And I want to recommend to all the Bamboo Pack audience out there, go to YouTube, type in The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch, or read his book, The Last Lecture. You will be changed forever. So now, Kim, as you're, what'd you say, 62 years old? I did not expect that. I thought you were probably younger than I am. You have lost the love of your life, several years back. You have amazing children, 11 grandchildren. You're doing so many great things, professionally, that it's changing the world. What do you consider to be a victory or a win for you?
Wow. I knew that question was coming. And so you think that I would be prepared for it. I think the biggest win is that I realized that we kind of grieve funny. Like, I've known people who have lost a child, which how devastating is that, right? Oh my gosh, I really can't imagine it. But who lost somebody close to them, parent, their husband, their wife, and a good friend, whoever, and can stay down underneath the grief. We talked about getting on top of the grief a little bit, but can stay in the gloom. And part of it is because you feel like if you laugh again, you're saying, well, it doesn't hurt me that bad that you died, that you're not here anymore. Right. Well, I think the opposite is true. I think the more you laugh, I think the better you do in life, the more people you help, the giving life your all. I look at that as the best way to honor my husband, to just give life everything I've got.
So does this go back to a quote that I saw on your Facebook that said, it's okay if others are uncomfortable with your grief?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Well, Kim, just to parallel this, my mother lost her husband, my father, in 1971, and then proceeded to raise 5 children, me being the youngest. I was 4 and a half when he passed away. She has loved 3 men in her life, and she has buried all 3 men.
Oh, my word.
The latest was, 3 years after my father passed away, she dated a man named Eric, who was an amazing man. They never got married, but he was like a stepfather to me. He was an amazing man, 20-some years, and he passed away back in the 90s. And then a few years later, she started dating another gentleman named Chuck, and he passed away 2 years ago, next week, actually. It'll be 2 years next week. And, and you're right. I've seen her go through these grieving periods. I don't remember when my father died. I don't remember her grieving. She was too busy taking care of 5 kids. But, I watched it when she lost Eric, and I really watched it 2 years ago when she lost Chuck. And it's amazing how, it still hurts. I can still see the pain in my mother's eyes and her behavior, but she still moves on. She still goes forward. She lives at 88 years old. She still works in the summer and volunteers in the winter, and still lives life to the fullest capacity, with her children and grandchildren. It's just so, and it's amazing because I do think that kind of thought process and that behavior does help you live longer. It can, it gives you an extra spunk in life versus just lying down and not self-pity is not the right word, but, besides just kind of lying down and living under the grief, but like you said, getting on top of that grief can help you just it revitalizes you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And laugh. And laugh. Yeah. As much as you can laugh. Put on something funny and laugh. Let yourself laugh. It's almost like you need to laugh a bit so that you get used to it again. And then you recognize it's really okay to laugh again. I heard a podcast that you did. I was listening to that woman, Robin
Shear, yeah.
Yes. And so I watched a couple things she did because I loved her. And one of the things she said is working with Alzheimer's patients, she was getting them to laugh. And all of a sudden they had more memories than they did before.
Yeah.
So laughter is a medicine. There's something to be said for that. So laugh, whoever it is that you like, that you think is funny, put it on and laugh.
And my mom we text 3 or 4 times every day, and we talk 3 or 4 times a week on the phone. And those I don't know if it's called emoji or Bitmoji, but you make your own. It looks just like you, and you can have different. Yeah. Well, mine looks just like me. I mean, I'm a bald man. I mean, there's not a lot of it just looks just like me, and it does. And so every night, not every night, but about 4 nights a week, I send her, when she says, "Good night, honey, I'm going to bed now," usually around 7:30, 8 o'clock, I send her usually a Bitmoji of me, of that little character in the bed or sleeping on the moon, and she thinks those are so damn funny. So I know I get her to chuckle or laugh or smile most every night before she goes to bed.
That's so sweet. I love it. And I love your mom. What a wonderful woman.
Oh, dude,
she's an incredible lady.
She is so amazing. And it's so cool because when my grandson Jack was born 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now, she kind of came, she and Jack are extremely close. And my daughter will FaceTime my mom probably 3 nights a week. And she just puts the camera on Jack and follows him around the house. And my mom just watches and they communicate, and she just laughs, and she thinks it's the funniest thing. So, that idea of Jack, because Jack's kind of a goofy kid. He's got a big head, and he's cute as a button, but he's funny acting. He's got a really quirky personality. And my mom just laughs at him, and she'll text me the next morning, "Oh, I FaceTime with Jack last night. My gosh, he's the funniest kid." So you're right. I think that's perfectly true. And I think I need to laugh more often. I really do. I think I need to find better things to laugh at, or laugh with, not laugh at.
I don't think you can overlap. I don't think there's too much laughing ever.
Well,
right?
What makes me laugh, and I just started watching TV again after a few years of not even having it. I kept my TV I didn't even have it plugged in for years. And now I really find Modern Family, Seinfeld, and The Office funny show. I've always loved those shows anyway, but, and I watched The Office with my son all the time when he was younger, but I started watching them again and they just make me laugh. I just find that kind of humor funny. So.
Oh, so funny. Those are my top 3 too, I gotta say. And my grandkids love The Office. They love they'll watch the entire series over and over again. They love it. They quote Dwight, they quote Michael, whatever. It's funny. It's so funny. Yeah, they love it.
Well, I'm that nerd that follows all 3 of I follow The Office and Modern Family on Instagram, so I'm always getting quotes, and I'm always getting these offers to buy shirts that have Dwight on them, or say that's what she said, or all these little quotes. And when Dawson was probably in high school, we started, he and I. So I raised Dawson primarily on my own. I got full custody when he was just a little over 2 years old. And so when he was in high school, we'd watch a lot of TV just in front of the TV. I would have dinner in front of the TV because we would talk. It was, you try to get a teenager to sit down one-on-one with his dad at dinner time. You're just hurrying to get through the dinner so he can go back on his computer or go with his friends. So we just watched The Office, and we'd talk during The Office, and we would laugh at the series, but we'd have conversations about school and life at the same time. And so it's funny now because every time I hear The Office sound, what do they call it, the title sequence or the beginning of the show, I get hungry. It's like Pavlov's dogs because I'm so used to eating during The Office. Every time it comes on, I'm thinking, "Oh, I'm kind of hungry." I'm like, "No, I just had dinner." And yeah, so he and I got through a lot of high school years watching that during dinner time.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Okay. I like it.
I'm excited for this next question. So if I had a time machine and I'm going to shoot over to Comstock Park today, Kim, and you and I were going to jump in it. You're going to go back to maybe your 18, 20-year-old self, and you're going to sit down on a park bench in Comstock Park and talk to your younger self. And you're going to give advice, words of wisdom, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to just sit back and observe. What would you tell your younger self?
Besides, make sure you buy Google as soon as it comes out. So much of what I'm about to say is probably so cliche. But don't sweat the small stuff. Let it happen. Who cares? And realize that your views at 20 are going to change. But it's okay. It's okay to let your views change. Sometimes we're so solid on something. Oh, I know this is true. I know it's true. And then something comes out and you're like, oh gosh, here I was standing on it. And I find out it's not true. Well, so give some leeway and give people grace and give yourself grace as you give other people grace.
I love that. Your whole theme you can kind of, you could capture it, to love everybody. I mean, including yourself. I mean, it's interesting to meet a person because I don't know when maybe between the time when your husband passed and today, you kind of came up with this. I don't like to use the word theme, but I'm going to call it a theme of what life is about. And I didn't come up with mine I came up with mine 27 years ago, but I didn't really come up with it. It was just given to me and I had to work through it for years until a few years ago it came to me. But very few people could say, if I asked them the question I asked you earlier, what's a mantra what's the most important thing you could share? And you said, love everybody. I mean, very few people have that kind of thing that they can say, this is my foundation. This is my core. And everything I do and stand for exudes from that core. That's a really rare gift. And the thing is, when you talk with conviction. And I'm sitting here. I usually take a ton of notes during a podcast. Yours, very little. I'm sitting back. I'm finding myself sitting back with my mouth open, just listening, catching flies with my mouth. I'm a mouth breather listening to you talk because it's so convincing and it's so true. I mean, it's so hard to argue with your core of what you believe in and what you preach and teach. So I love that.
Wow. What a compliment. Well, thank you.
Oh man, it's for a person who spent 20 some years or better part of 22 years looking for, what's my core. I can really respect and appreciate someone who has that. Trust me. Okay. So what's next for you?
Well, I do have a couple books in the works. I'm writing a book on grief. I'm co-authoring a book on grief, and I'm writing a couple other things and speaking. I speak. I just started a business, helping other people start their businesses, helping people launch, because so many people have an idea and they go to all these trainings and they want to start a business, but they have no idea what the first step is. And so I'm starting a business with a marketing guru and lots of good stuff. I'm going next summer to Japan with my entire family. So that will be really fun. And I love it when we can all get together because there's 20 of us when we're all together. And so I love it because it's a rare moment when it happens.
20 of you. That's so amazing. You are, well, you're not really a modern family as what they term, but you're like Modern Family. There's so many of those on the TV show. They all get together. It's like a football team getting together. You've got two baseball teams and two spares.
No kidding. Yeah, I did my part to reproduce, I guess.
Well, I'm going to assume if I were to met your children and your grandchildren that you probably produced very well. Like I'm assuming they have their head on their shoulders and they're probably doing some great things to make a good impact on the earth.
As my kids were growing up, I would take them. Like if I was going to Peru to help out after an earthquake or Venezuela after floods or whatever, I would take one of them with me. And I think that helped make them the people that they are today. But yes, I agree. They are all incredible human beings. Every last one.
Well, I know they probably seen you on TV. They've heard your podcast and everything, but I hope they all listen to this podcast and they have a little extra step in their pep in their step when they hear all the wisdom Mom's sharing today, and Grandma or Uma.
That's right.
Uma. It's funny because, Jack's, my grandson's other grandpa, he calls him Papa. So Ashley said to me, Dad, you can have first choice of what you want to be called. And so I said, okay, I don't really know. And then when he was born, Kim, when Jack was born 2 years ago, I went and he was in NICU because he was 5.5 weeks early. And I had to gown up and, scrub and go in there. And I put my finger out and he grabbed it. And I have a picture. I took a picture right away of him grabbing my finger. And all I said was, it's okay, buddy. Grandpa B is here. And my daughter looked at me. She goes, is it Grandpa B? And I said, it's got to be now. But the little turd calls me Papa. He goes around the house saying, I need Papa. So because when I go up north from Lansing, I spend a lot of time at their house. I'll go there for 3 or 4 days, sometimes, 3 or 4 days usually. And next Tuesday, I'm going back up to the UP, and I'm going to go Tuesday night to their house, and then I'll be there probably until Friday. And Wednesday, I said, hey, I only have one coaching session on Wednesday. Don't send him to daycare. It's going to be Papa. It's going to be Grandpa, and I call him Pal. It's going to be Pal Grandpa Day. But he still won't call me Grandpa. He can't say Grandpa yet. So I'm working that in there. But
well, you might be Papa forever.
I waited
until my oldest grandchild or whoever, because some of them were born in a clump, but I waited until somebody called me something because I didn't care what they called me. I just wanted them to call me. And so I would say grandma, and somehow it turned into Uma, the oldest one, or I guess she's not the oldest, but second to the oldest. And she would say Uma, and it stuck. So,
oh, that's a cool name.
Yeah,
that's a cool name.
I like her.
It's interesting. Now, my girlfriend, her grandkids call her Gam Gam.
Oh.
And actually her license plate says #1 Gam Gam. That's her license plate. So I can always find her car when we come out to the mall or a restaurant somewhere. I'm like, oh, there's your car right there. It's easy to find. But I've always just wanted to be old school Grandpa B, but I think you're right. It might be Papa, but yet he calls his other grandpa Papa. That was kind of the name he took. And so I don't know how he's going to work because I would be Papa B and he is Papa Pete. That could be a little confusing. But I'll take what I can get.
Well, back in the day, it was always just grandpa. So you'd have a few grandpas.
Yeah, that's true.
There were some greats or just grandma and everybody was grandma. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I like the new names. I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're fun.
All right, Kim, as we begin to wrap up, I'm going to ask you, is there any question that I did not ask that you wish I had, or is there any final parting words of wisdom you'd like to share with the Bamboo Pack?
Well, I'll just share one quick thing. And I talked earlier about the fact that there's myths surrounding love. And one of them is that love's a two-way street. And it is not. Love is not a two-way street. If you're love to get love in return, you're setting yourself up for loneliness and disappointment and heartache because you have this expectation. And you don't have control over the person and how much love they give you and how they give you love. So you're just setting yourself up for failure. You love because that's what love does without expecting anything in return. Love is wonderful in that there's something about love that you talked about this earlier, Brian, that you love and it does come back. It typically does come back, but it might not come back exactly how you want. So just love and let other people love you the way they love you.
Well, God bless you. That was one of the better parting statements I've heard in a long time.
Well,
Kim,
thanks.
I got to tell you, man, I call a lot of people man or dude, so bear with me. I have to tell you, you are one of the most amazing people I've ever had on this podcast.
Oh my gosh. Well, I am humbled. That is so sweet, Brian.
Well, I was talking to my 1:30 coaching session today. He's out of Seattle, Washington. He goes, so I said, hey, I'm gonna have to wrap up a few minutes early. I have everything set up for the podcast. I said, I just want to make sure I have everything finalized. He goes, what's it about? And I said, I don't really know. I said, I was just introduced to this person a week and a half ago, and I haven't had a chance to read her book yet. I said, I've Googled her and I've done some research. I said, but I don't really know. I just know kind of what her general thought is and her general genre. And that was the beauty of it. I had no expectations, and this was amazing.
Well, thank you. I so enjoy talking to you. You're fabulous, and your podcast is incredible. Everybody should have your podcast at the top of their list. You do such a good job, and Gina speaks so highly of you. And so I've been a fan of yours even before we met.
Well, I really appreciate that. And do you mind, Kim, if after we wrap up, can I stay on the phone with you for a few minutes afterward?
Sure.
Great.
No problem.
Great. Okay. So Kim, I want to make that official. We're going to part now for the podcast for this episode. I want to thank you for being one of the most profound guests I've ever had on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are more than welcome. It has been an honor. Okay, Bamboo Pack out there, please, everybody. I know you're going to love this episode. I can tell this is the 103rd episode shot of the Bamboo Lab podcast. I can tell based on the vibes throughout this conversation I've had with Kim that this is going to go over extremely well. Please, everybody, hit that like button, rate us, review us, subscribe, share us with 3 people. There are 3 people out there who are going through something, who may be a grieving process. Maybe they're struggling with love. They're just having a difficult time trying to control too many things in their life. This is the episode for them. And please click on the links below the show notes and do some looking into Kim and her books and her talks and her show and her podcast. That'll all be included here. I cannot recommend this enough. In the meantime, I hope you all know I love you all. And please make sure every day you get out there and you strive and you love and you live. Until next time.